In this next lesson of custom theme development, we're going to be working on creating our custom footer in our brand new custom theme that we've been working on. I'll go into WordPress, I'll go to Appearance Editor, and I'm going to go into the Patterns section. I do have a footer, but the footer is really basic, and all it says is proudly powered by WordPress. We'll be customizing our footer and building something a little bit more robust that goes with our brand and also reflects the various elements that we want to include within the footer. I'll be doing this in the WordPress editor. I'll open list view, and as you can see, we have this existing nested group. The parent group is the footer wrapper, so let's just select that and go to advanced, and let's make sure that we're using an HTML element of footer. So this has a little more semantics. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to styles, and we will change the background color of this. We are going to use a dark gray color, and then I'm just going to reduce the opacity a little bit. And we'll go ahead and select our text, and we'll go ahead and set our text color to be our light cream colored. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to augment what it says right here. So instead of saying proudly powered by WordPress, we're going to go ahead and change this to say copyright 2025 green dot blue. I'll go ahead and write privacy policy. Eventually, I'm going to want this to link to the privacy policy page. However, that does not currently exist. All right, so that's going to be my bottom message. I'm just going to rename this, and I will call this group copyright. I like to organize my list view so that it's a little bit easier to see what's going on. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another item above this group. So I'll use these three dots right here. I'm going to select add before, and we're going to go ahead and create a column block. I want to create 3 columns, so I'll start off by creating 3 equal columns. In my first column, I'm just going to have the name of my company and the address and phone number. Inside of here, we'll start off by adding a heading. I'm going to make this an H3, and we'll go ahead and write green.blue. I'll highlight my text right here. I'm going to come to the text color, and we're going to assign this to have a color of green. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit a return, and we'll go ahead and type an address. I'm going to use shift return to make a soft return, and I'll just drop this down to its own line. And then finally, I'm going to hit return one more time, and this is going to say contact us, and we're going to go ahead and use our phone number. I'm going to highlight the phone number. We'll make this a link. And as you can see, it already underlines this and recognizes it as a phone number. So if the user does click this, it's going to try to open a phone connection. In my case, I'm on my computer, so it's trying to hit FaceTime. It is nice that you don't have to do anything special. It will just automatically create a phone number link for you. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select the overarching column. I'm going to go into styles right here, and we're going to adjust the padding. I'll unlink these, and I'm going to add some padding on the top. I'm going to make sure that my padding on the bottom is none. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to snug up the distance between my header and my paragraphs. So I'm going to select my header, and we'll go ahead and go into dimensions and turn on padding and margin. And I'm just going to make sure that my padding and my margin is set all the way down. We'll do the same thing on our paragraph. I'm going to select my paragraph block. I'll go to dimensions, padding and margin, and we're just going to make sure the top and the bottom is set all the way down. And you can see how these two items start to snug up a little bit. I'll do the same thing on the final paragraph. And now you can see we have less distance between these 3 paragraphs. This is fine for my first column. My second column, which is right here, we're going to create an element inside of this, and it's going to also be an H3. This is going to say join our mailing list. With my header selected, I'm going to go to text color, and we're going to use our cream color. I'm also going to text align this content to the center. Ultimately, what we're going to be placing here is a form element. So we ultimately want our users to be able to enter their email address and sign up. It is worth mentioning that because I don't have any plugins that are controlling this, there is no current way for me to create any sort of contact or form elements. We're going to have to do this in a custom manner. We'll go ahead and do that in an upcoming lecture. But for right now, I'm just going to leave this as is. If you want to, you could even make a paragraph here and just say enter form field, just to remind ourselves that that's something that we want to do. And I'll just center align this for now. And then in my final column right here, I'm going to go ahead and make a header. This will also be an H3, and we'll just write follow us. I'm going to highlight this text, and we'll change our text color to our cream color. I will go ahead and click return, and then I want to add some social media icons. So I'm going to use the social icons. I'll click the plus sign right here, and we are going to add a link to Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm going to select the social icon area, and we'll go ahead and click open links in new tab. I did not place the links here, but if we click on this, we could enter our social media links. So you would want to go ahead and do that. With the social icon block element selected, I'm going to go to styles, and I'm going to change the icon background color to be our limey green. And then the icon color is going to be our dark teal. In this way, I can go ahead and make these things reflect the branding of the elements on our page. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to adjust the columns a little bit. All of our 3 columns are currently using equal width, but I'm going to set my first column to 20% to make that a little bit more narrow. I'll set my first column to 25%. Then my second column is going to take up 50%. And my third column is going to take up 25%. I'll select this copyright group down here. I'm going to go into styles, and you can see that there is some padding. This was created by default. I don't want the padding to be this tall, so I'm just going to reduce this down considerably. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change this paragraph text. So it is going to be italic. So I'll select the paragraph block. We'll go into typography. I'm going to go to appearance, and we will select our light italic. And you can see that that's going to update. And let's just make sure that our text is small down here. This text does not need to be quite as large. So that is looking pretty good. If we save this now and go back to the front end of WordPress and refresh, and let's just go to a shorter page so it's a little bit easier for us to see this. But you can see that this is what our footer currently looks like. So this is looking pretty good. Obviously, we're going to have to deal with our mailing list, but so far the footer is appearing in the way that we want. What I encourage you to do is to check out your site as you develop it at the various screen sizes so that you can be proactive about making any sort of edits that you may need to ensure that your site works at the various screen sizes. If I open my inspector and I want to make sure that I have toggle device toolbar on so I can easily mimic what my website looks like at small screen sizes, you can resize the screen. I'll just bring it down to a smaller viewport, and you can see that my footer doesn't look so great. It looks good at the large screen sizes, but once it starts to shrink down, the spacing's off, I don't like the alignment, and we can definitely just improve our visual layout. The first thing to do is to figure out what sort of elements are controlling these things, and you can see here's our wrapper footer. We have another footer inside for whatever reason. Inside of that, we have this div, and this is the columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a custom class to this. And once we have a custom class on this, we should be able to increase the spacing, and then we can come into the various columns that we have. Here's our middle column right here, and we are using an alignment on the various elements that are doing a text align center, so we probably are going to want to overwrite that. I'll come back into WordPress. I'm going to scooch the size of my screen down. If you have not already done that, you'll want to resize this down so it's showing what it looks like at a mobile. Then I'm going to select this parent column element. We're going to go into advanced, and we're going to assign an additional class of foot call wrap. I'll save this. And just to verify that this class is showing up, if I refresh my page and we find that div that is wrapping around everything, you can see here's our custom class. So now I can go ahead and use that as a hook. You can always try this out in the developer tools. And because I have my custom class, I can just use that. And if we just do something like add more gap, that's going to start to improve. I'll also add a text align of center. That's going to make things look better right here. And I think that once we get into our CSS, it would be nice if we maybe just used a really light separator line between these different blocks. And you can see that I'm going to need to go into my social media icons. That I believe is this last div right here. I'll have to find the UL, and I'm going to need to overwrite this align item center. So we'll just have to be a little bit more specific and overwrite those things. Now that I basically know what I need to do, I'm going to go into the backend portion of my project so that I can create these classes. I'll go into my style.css, and underneath my navigation styles, I'm going to go ahead and create a comment. What we'll do here is we'll do that dot foot call wrap, and we're going to go ahead and add our gap and our text align center. And what I want to show you right now is if we save these changes and we go back to the WordPress front end and refresh, you can see that the edits that I just made are happening. However, if I resize my screen, those are now overwriting what we had previously. So what I actually prefer to do is to style the footer how I want it to look at the mobile, and then I'm going to place the alternate declarations in a media query. This will allow me to build in the mobile first manner, which I always strive to do. I'm going to come here. We're going to select these various elements. So I'll go into the first column. Here's our green dot blue. We had aligned the text previously to the left. So I'm just going to change the alignment of these things so that it's all to the center. And we'll select the overarching column right here. We're going to go to styles. We're going to add some padding, and I'm going to unlink this so I can just assign some padding on the bottom. Maybe we'll use medium. I'm going to go to border. I'm going to unlink the border so I can target just one part of the border. I only want to create border on the bottom. I'll go ahead and I'll assign that to be our lime green. And then because I want spacing in between these, I'm going to select the second column. We'll go into our styles here, and we'll just increase the padding on both the top and the bottom because I want to create some equal space between these two columns. And then we'll come to our last column, which is our follow us. I'm going to center align these elements, and we'll go to the social icons and align those to the center as well. Then we're going to go back to the second column, and I need to add my border on the bottom. I'll unlink the border as we did before. I'll use my mustard green and set it to 1 pixel. And then I'm going to come to this bottom column. We'll open up our styles, and we're going to add our padding. And let's give this a save. We'll refresh now. So of course, at the large screen, this is not optimal, but we're going to overwrite that when we make our CSS. Here's what it looks like so far. So I think this looks a little bit better. Maybe our padding on the top of these is slightly too much. So let me just come back here and adjust this down a little bit. I'll save that and let's refresh. You may have recalled that we did add this gap of 2 rems. That's a gap on all sides of our flex box item. So let's just actually get rid of these rules really quickly so we can get a true representation of what this looks like. There we go. So that looks much better. I like this. I think that at the mobile size, my footer looks great. And now I'm going to make my site bigger, and then we'll just need to overwrite some of these things. So the things that I'm going to want to overwrite are in this first div right here. I'm going to remove the border on the bottom. You can see that this is being applied as an inline style. So in order for us to remove the border on the bottom, we're going to have to use our important modifier. If we look at the H3 and the paragraphs, they have this text align of center, and you can see it's using this has text align center class that is being applied. So we'll want to override that as well. So let's go into our CSS. We'll place these inside of our existing media query. So I'm just going to cut this rule, and we'll come into our media query here. I'm going to paste this in. And what we want to do is we're going to get the foot column wrap div elements. I'll just grab all of them. And we're going to go ahead and set our border bottom to none. And of course, I need to make this important. And then I'm going to use a dot foot col wrap, and we'll use div first of type. Let's tell the text align to be left. Once again, I'm going to use important so that we can override that. And let's save this, and we'll go back to the front end and we'll refresh. As you can see, the border on the bottom disappeared. The text align center, you can see it's being applied, but it's being overwritten because these are the descendant elements. So let's try to change our CSS and do div first of type, and then we'll do greater than asterisk. So we'll get all of the children elements, and let's see if this will resolve our problem. Okay, that takes care of that. That's now left aligned. That's looking much better. We're going to leave this middle one as being center aligned, and we just want to left align this last div. So this is the first div. I'll collapse that. Here's the second div. This is the third div. So I just need to make sure that there's only 3 divs that are inside our foot column wrapper, and it looks like that is true. So I can use something similar to what we did right here. I'll just actually copy this, and we can do a group selector, and we'll just change this to last of type. And I'm just going to get all of the descendant elements. If we save this now and we refresh, you can see that this is now left aligned, and it looks like we have some weird little thing going on here. Let's just check it out. So here's our H3 left aligned. The UL is using a display of flex, and it looks like on the social icons we have a justify content of center. So we're going to need to just change this to flex start, and then they'll line up nicely. So I could either use this as a selector, or maybe we can just throw this into the same rule that we had before. I don't think it will really interfere. So let's just try adding justify content and do a flex start. I'll save that, and if we jump back into the browser and refresh, there we go. So here's our large screen footer. That looks good. And of course, if we resize down, if we scroll down to the bottom and we check it out, it looks good at the small screen size as well. So there you have it. We have our custom footer. We had to add a little bit of custom CSS just to ensure that this was styled the correct way at the mobile and large screen sizes. But I think that is going to work for us. So we can move on to the next step.